Hey everybody, it's Ezra Levant here. I have a very special show for you today, and it's a little bit different. As you know, every day at 12 noon, we do a live stream super chat. That's what Google calls it. It's sort of an ask me anything kind of situation. I play video clips normally, and I really take questions from the audience. And by super chat, I mean if you put a few dollars behind your chat, it puts it in a bright color. I see it out of the corner of my eye because I got my laptop open. And I read every single super chat and I give a quick reply. So we're going to be doing that today, and I really appreciate those super chats because we get 70% of the dough. YouTube keeps 30%. But we can make a couple $100 in a show, and the reason I mention that is because we don't take any government money. So this is how we pay our bills here at Rebel News, so I really appreciate it. You know, I published this little book called China Virus. How Justin Trudeau's pro-communist ideology is putting Canadians in danger. It's a pretty quick book. I mean, let's be honest. It's a short book. You can read it in a few hours, but it's done really well so far, and I'm really pleased with that. I want to let you know when I say China virus, the actual virus I'm referring to is the Communist Party of China, the dictatorship, the bullies over there. The coronavirus, the COVID-19 coronavirus, exposed the deeper problem of Canada's links, the Trudeau family's links to Communist China. I document that in the book, over 100 footnotes, and the book's done well. Can you call up the Amazon page? Last I checked, it was still #2 on the books side of Amazon, and I think it had hit #1 as a Kindle download. I think it's still in the top 10 or something. So that's pretty good. Yeah, so what do we have here? Amazon charts, #6 this week. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, it's been bouncing around the top of the list. You can get that's the paperback version. And so #6 this week. And look at that, 200 and almost 300 ratings. When we were joking about this the other day, there were some left-wing trolls who got on and said, don't read the book, burn the book. They hadn't even read it yet. So I guess my friends have shown up and gave it some good reviews. So I'm very happy about that. But let me tell you, thanks, Justin. So that's my little book. Like it's a little book, right? It's not that big, but people seem to like it. But I mentioned this book, and we have a second camera here, and Efron's in, so I'm going to pivot to Efron now, because what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through this book. And I'm going to hold up, and it's like I'm going to read a book. It's like when teachers read books to like kindergarten classes, they hold the book, they sort of read it, but hold the book for people to see. That's what I'm going to do, because this is one of the most amazing books I've ever read in my life. It's called Red Color News Soldier. Isn't that that's weird. What even is that? That's like a jumble. What is that? Well, secret archive hidden for years, the unseen story of the Cultural Revolution, a Chinese photographer's Odyssey through the Cultural Revolution. So this book, compared to this is a very thick book. It has over 300 pages. And as you can see, it's photographs. Hundreds of perfectly preserved photographs, obviously in black and white, taken by a red color news soldier that was basically an official photographer for the People's Liberation Army. I think that's what side he was on, because there's different things in here about rebel forces and a purge and the whole thing. It's a fascinating book, and I should reread it again. I bought this book when I was in Hong Kong. I bought this book when I was in Hong Kong, I don't know, 10 years ago, whatever, in a bookstore, because I think I told you before I had this special trip. I went to China. It was an amazing experience, but I had a real focus on what's in the bookstores in the communist part. So I would go in the bookstores. I should tell you, just to recap, I won't get into all that again, but the #1 books in Chinese bookstores were how to make money, how to buy real estate, how to invest in the stock market. It was all commerce and get-rich-quick schemes kind of thing. And But I did go into bookstores and see if I could find any books on liberty ideas, like George Orwell's 1984. Yep. Animal Farm. Yes. The Federalist Papers on Liberty by John Stuart Mill. I could find so many things on the communist side, except for things. There were really only two things I couldn't find in communist in bookstores in communist China. One was anything dealing with religion. It was very hard to find an unadulterated religious book. They're really scared of that, obviously. And I would put Falun Gong in that category. And anything is criticism of the Chinese Communist Party itself. So I mean, it was sort of a weird mission. I was going from bookstore to bookstore in Shanghai, in Beijing, and in the smaller cities, seeing what I could or couldn't find. So when I was in Hong Kong, I then went from communist mainland to Hong Kong, and I went in a bookstore too. And I know that sounds weird, but I was curious. This is the first time I had been to China. I had been to Hong Kong before, but it's the first time I'd been to China. And I saw this, and I'm going to take off this jacket because the book itself is actually not it comes apart. Anyways, so in the dozen years since then, I actually misplaced my original copy, and I found this as a used book online, and I bought it for $55, and I got it as a used book, and it's in mint condition. And I did a little show about it the other day, and I went back online, and they're so sold out now. You have to pay $350 to get this book. So obviously people are interested, and there's not a lot of them. This is one of the most amazing books I've ever seen. It is a photography book with basically it's a book of 200 photographs with a ton of explanations. And I think about this book a lot, not just about China, but about the current extreme cultural self-denunciation, cancel culture, shaming and naming, and I'm just going to get into it now. So I'm going to read this book, and I haven't read it in a while. I'm going to read it and go through it with you because you really can't get this book anymore. You just can't get it. And if you want to buy a used copy online, it's $350. So let me share this with you. It's by Sheng, a Chinese photographer's Odyssey through the Cultural Revolution. And it starts with that picture of a massive crowd. I'm not going to read every page, but I'm going to skim through it with you. And I see the super chats. I'm going to try and tuck into this book for 20 minutes, and then I promise I'll come back and take the super chats. Let me read a little bit from the preface. Red color, new soldier. I'll just read the words here. So you don't bother zooming in. I'll look at camera 2. I'll read the words, and then I'll come back to camera 3 when I've got the photos, okay? Red color, new soldier is the literal translation of the 4 Chinese characters printed on the armband first given to Li Junsheng and his rebel group in Beijing at the end of 1966, 8 months after the launch of the Great Proletarian Cultural Revolution. There are other more fluent translations, but none retains the musicality of the 4 character words brought together. Red color, news soldier. Isn't that true? For a long time in the Western world, Mao Zedong and the Cultural Revolution were perceived with amazement and fascination, only very rarely with horror. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, rioting students around the world were inspired by the finger-pointing, slogan-shouting style of the Red Guards. And Andy Warhol in New York was producing his renowned silkscreen paintings of Mao, the Great Helmsman. Even today, all the chaos of that period can seem somewhat romantic and idealistic in comparison with the contemporary Chinese society we see and hear about. With this in mind, it was necessary to produce a clearer and more truthful image of the turmoil that turned China upside down during the Cultural Revolution. Li Junsheng was the one person who, through his exceptional photographic legacy, could convey the truth on the printed page. A few guidelines were established on front with Li's agreement. None of the photographs could be cropped. That's a good rule. The images would be presented in the most accurate chronological order possible so as best to depict the historical process. And precise captions would accompany the images with facts verified through additional research and double-checked against the archives of the Heilongjiang Daily, where Li worked for 18 years. I won't read any more, but it was a very lengthy and meticulous fact-checking process. In a way, it was like documenting the atrocities of the Holocaust. It's so historically important, you've got to get it right. In fact, I was just saying before we turn the cameras on, this book could be the basis for an entire museum. It absolutely could. Okay, so I just want to show you one more thing. Heilongjiang province is in the north of China. It's near Russia. In fact, believe it or not, my sister lived in Harbin in Heilongjiang for a couple years. Harbin's the big city there. It's the sister city to Edmonton, and Daqing is the sister city to Calgary. There's some oil up there, that's why. So this is the map of China. Heilongjiang is right up near Russia, right near Siberia. It's not even far from Japan. It's near Khabarovsk on the Russian side. So that's just where it is. But in a way, it doesn't even matter where it is because this is just a microcosm of the whole thing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm not going to read any more of the big text. But maybe one day there will be a museum. Because this is a museum in a book. Just take the photographs, put the text next to it, have some audio-visual things. You got yourself a museum. If I had $1 billion, I'd spend $20 million making a museum about this. A peasant activist leads a crowd at a rally during the socialist education movement in the countryside of Heilongjiang province, May 12, 1965. Peasant activist leading the crowd. So this is early rumblings. What's going on? I mean, by the way, this is almost 20 years, around 20 years, I forget the exact dates of the Chinese Revolution. So the communists had been in power for 20 years. But what was happening now? Why were they purging? Why were they... And I see Krista Beck, an amazing $140 super chat. That's incredible. But I want to get into this before I stop to take a break for the super chats. So thank you for that. I'm going to skip the text because we don't have time for that. Some of them are just plain old beautiful photos. Just look at that. Early dawn in the countryside of Heilongjiang province, 21st of December, 1964. Remember, this is when China was extremely poor. There weren't cars, there were bicycles, there were some trucks and cars. There were still famines. Front page of the Heilongjiang Daily, 19th of August, 1964, reporting Mao Zedong's first review of the Red Guards from Tiananmen Gate in Beijing the previous day. Beneath the photographs of Mao and Marshal Lin Biao, the main headline reads, Chairman Mao celebrates the Great Cultural Revolution with millions of people. So he's starting a cultural revolution with the Red Guards. This is just a little bit of, that's Li Junsheng with his parents on the eve of his first birthday in Dalian, Liaoning province, 1941. So this is just a little bit of biography about the photographer himself, which is very interesting, but we don't have time for that today. I'm going to skip ahead to his incredible work. So that's him there, Li, holding his Russian-made Kiev 35mm camera and a German 6x6 Rolleiflex in Ashihe commune, Acheng County, 1965. So that's him. That's the red color news soldier who took all the photos I'm about to show you in perhaps the most amazing photographic book you can find. And like I say, you want to buy this online, get ready to fork over $350. I'm lucky enough to have bought 2 of them for less than that. So again, we're going chronological order, photos by Li Junsheng, red color news soldier. During the socialist education movement, a work team leader instructs peasants on the 4 cleanups and how to rid the countryside of anti-party elements. Okay, I'm going to read just a little bit from here, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, what was the situation? What's the Cultural Revolution? What's that about? In 1964, the first tremors of the decade-long cataclysm known as the Cultural Revolution began to shake the Chinese countryside. The socialist education movement, I'm going to say Black Lives Matter, I'm going to say, democratic socialists, I'm going to say Marxists. Listen, these were the original Marxist enforcers. Launched by Mao Zedong the previous year, started as a campaign against corruption and ideological backsliding. Oh, you're backsliding. You're not being ideological enough. In reality, it was a dress rehearsal for the great chaos to come, a prelude to the anarchy and class struggle the chairman would unleash to deepen the communist revolution, purge all enemies, and establish himself once and for all as the sole and infallible ruler of China. 5 years earlier, Mao had retired to the political sidelines. His Great Leap Forward, which sought to boost grain and steel production and collect the entire nation into a vast network of people's communes, had sparked one of the most colossal human tragedies in modern history, a famine that would kill over 20 million people. Stung by the movement's failure and ensuing criticism of his policies, Mao left the rebuilding of the country largely to the new head of state, President Liu Shaoqi. By 1965, under a variety of liberalizing reforms that saw the chairman's prestige wane and power in the communists decentralized, China had recovered, but at a cost Mao considered personally and ideologically treacherous. So just to explain, you know, the Great Leap Forward, this is when Mao said, we're just going to have communes, we're going to get rid of capitalism, everyone's going to have a little steel smelter in their backyard. Weirdly, you can't do that, it doesn't work. Like, it was insane central planning. 20 million people starved, at least. I've seen estimates higher. Total failure. Mao's sidelined. They bring in some normalcy, and Mao says, no, no, no. I'm going to reassert myself. So they were having a re-revolution to purge anyone who didn't think like that insane tyrant. During the socialist education movement, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, no, I'm kidding, a work team leader instructs peasants on the 4 cleanups and how to rid the countryside of anti-party elements. Oh, I just want to read a little bit more. I want to tell you some of the little slogans they had. And I'll just read this in the camera too, because I'm just reading words here. Goaded by Mao's cry to nip the counter-revolution in the bud, millions of educated youth, primarily high school graduates from the cities, flooded rural areas to learn from the peasants. Meanwhile, droves of urban government and party cadres, work teams, arrived at country communes for year-long stays to propagate socialist values, beginning with the 4 cleanups of accounting procedures, granary supplies, property accumulation, and payment compensation. Like, it's just they had this strange, absolute totalitarian view led by basically their version of college know-nothings who didn't know a lot about how the world worked, but were insanely ideological about it. Okay, I'm not going to read any more words. Let's just show the pictures, okay? That's why this book is amazing, the pictures. And it's already 12:17. I don't want to waste any more time on words. Let's look at the pictures. A peasant, criticized as a class enemy, is forced to bow in the traditional acknowledgement of guilt below. Encouraged to make personal accusations against the denounced, a young woman attacks fellow peasant Zhang Jiangge for unreasonably pressuring her father to pay a debt on time. So they're having public shaming. So he lent her dad some money, pay the debt on time, shaming, you're a capitalist, you're not being a true communist. So they had massive shaming sessions. Hundreds of people coming to denounce the guy who was told to hang his head in shame. Under a banner that reads, "Struggle Against the Enemies Rally," Zhang Jiangge is denounced as a rich peasant by members of the Nansheng production brigade and made to bow his head for hours. For hours. That's a form of torture if you didn't know. There he is, bending his head. So this is just early days. Remember what we read, that this book is chronological. So this is how it gets its start. The Donghuan production brigade holds a meeting to reaffirm socialist values and political and ideological correctness. Political correctness. That's the word they were using 50 years ago, Mao's China. The next day, peasants are called to elect 7 new brigade members from a field of 9 candidates handpicked by party officials. So it's the simulation of democracy. It's not a democracy. There's a guy in a tree with a gun. Alternating work in the fields with military exercises, production brigade members are trained in militia techniques. After work, they spend hours studying Mao's works and reading party-controlled newspapers such as the China Youth Daily, including this one with the headline, "Vietnamese troops shoot down 12 American planes for a total of over 100 in 7 months." All right, I'm going to now be, instead of going chronologically, because there's just simply too many, I'm going to choose the more dramatic ones, and frankly, they will be later in the book, because this documents how the revolution started, why it started. So Mao had a huge, we're going to go long today, I'm certain of it, Justin. Mao is an absolute tyrant. If you want to be grossed out, Google Mao and how many young Chinese girls he raped. If you want to be grossed out, Google Mao and how he did not bathe. He would have maybe one bath a year. He would have sex with young girls to prolong his life in his mind. He wasn't just a dictator. He thought he was a god. And he wanted to replace people's names with numbers. He had a scheme of everyone living under the ground. He truly was an insane man, arguably as insane or worse than Hitler. He certainly killed more than Hitler, killed more of his own people than Hitler. The Great Leap Forward caused tens of millions of people to die. He was sidelined, but now he's coming back with a vengeance, a propaganda vengeance, an ideological vengeance, the Red Guards. A local peasant activist leads the crowd in chanting slogans during "Fight Against the Enemies" rally before rich peasants and other anti-party elements are brought forth to be criticized. So, fight the enemy. Mao Zedong and his Red Guards, they're not fighting America, they're not fighting other countries, they're fighting their own people. Denounced as a rich peasant, Deng Guoxing bows before a sea of accusers during a 3-hour-long struggle session. Struggle session. Did you read about the struggle session at the National Post the other day? Where they had an hour or two meeting where people took turns denouncing Rex Murphy for the sin of being a 73-year-old white man. They had a struggle session. These are all the little millennial writers at the National Post demanding that Rex Murphy confess his sin of being an old white man, which he is, actually, I've met him, and wrongthink. And now Rex didn't show up to his struggle session, but they wanted him to. Imagine that. Imagine the shock. Yuan Fengxiang, I'm doing my best to pronounce the Chinese words. I hope I'm okay. Yuan Fengxiang is denounced as a rich peasant by a local woman, Chen Xiuhua. So he stands there, and people just come up and denounce. And maybe they have a grievance. Maybe it's just personal vengeance. Maybe people just want to be famous. Maybe, like, it's a madness. It's a madness of crowds. It's a feeding frenzy. Yuan Fengxiang and Deng Guoxing, opposite, left and right, are made to stand with their heads bowed while being sentenced to 2 years of hard labor. The local and county leaders who determine the sentences engage in casual banter as the accused are led away. And their crime, of course, is just owning property, if you missed it. You own property, you're a capitalist by definition, you're an enemy. Following his denunciation, Yuan Fengxiang's property is transformed into a class education exhibition center. Peasants from all over the county come to visit the landlord mansion opposite, where the family's personal belongings, red and green house lights, a Swiss watch. Oh my God, he had a watch. A deerskin jacket, a silk dress and stockings, a leather jacket lined with lamb's wool, and money boxes, among other items, are displayed as evidence of their bourgeois status. Well, definitely sentence. And this didn't happen once. This was the entire country. Do you have a grudge against someone? Is it a personal grudge? Is it a romantic grudge? Did someone look at you the wrong way? Well, just denounce them. Accused peasants are kept under guard by local militia as they wait to be denounced at a mass rally as one of the 4 elements. So there's 4 cleanups, there's 4 elements, there's gang of 4. They got their list. They got their list there. The 4 elements are landlords, rich peasants, counter-revolutionaries, or bad characters, as indicated by the sign. So I'm not a landlord. Rich peasant, that probably means anyone who isn't poorer than you. Counter-revolutionary, that could mean anyone who disagrees. And a bad character, that's just a catch-all. Oh, he's a bad character. So really, denounce anyone for anything. This is how it works. And it's absolutely crucial to have the mob, because everyone's doing it, so it must be right. Organized in production brigades, peasants are assigned back-breaking farm work, such as constructing pigsties and tilling fields. All right. I'm just going to show this, just because, I mean, like, it was all, I'm going to take off this outside cover here. Now, these are small photos. Residents of the town of Chung gather at a mass rally to denounce Hang Jingshan as a bad character and a speculator, someone involved in illegal commerce. He is arrested by the local police after publicly admitting his crime. So he admitted his crime, which was illegal commerce. Who knows what that even means? But if you have the entire town out there denouncing you, of course you're going to denounce it. Now, the role of children is very interesting to me. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, because I find that's replicated today, how children are used to denounce their elders. That happened in the Soviet Union too. Pavel Morozov, informant number 1, he was turned into a hero by Stalin for turning in his parents, who were farmers, who objected to Stalin's forced collectivization. So according to the myth, probably some truth to it, Pavel Morozov overheard his peasant farmer kulak parents saying, oh, I don't agree with Stalin taking over my land. And Pavel Morozov turned in his own parents to the state. And from that moment on, Pavel Morozov's little face was on a pin that the Boy Scouts of Russia, the young pioneers, had to wear. So every child in the Soviet Union was taught that the highest role model is to turn in your parents to the state. So Stalin did that in the 30s. And Mao picked it up in the 60s and 70s. As part of the national defense against imperialism abroad and revisionists at home, school children of the Little Red Militia and workers from an electrical component factory participate in militia drills. So they had children, the Greta Thunbergs of their day, participate in militia activities, practicing drills against revisionists. That's what they called. Again, they weren't fighting India. They weren't fighting the Soviet Union. And it was an absolute godlike cult. In a middle school meeting room, new members of the Communist Party take the oath in front of a bust of Mao and the hammer and sickle of the Communist flag. So it was a cult, absolutely a cult. Model citizens chosen to set an example for others include Wang Xuanyin, composer of the famous revolutionary song, Rely on the Helmsman While Sailing the Seas, and revolutionary hero Song Run Hao, who lost an arm in the Korean War, here showing off his skills and his faithful study of Mao's writings despite his injury. So absolute, you know, the pop songs of their day, the music of their day. I'm not going to go through every page because I'm only on page 67 and there's 316 pages here. I'm just going to show one more and then I'm going to take some super chats. Why don't we do that? I'm going to show this and then we're going to hop back to the super chats. Justin, did you want to mention something to me? No? Okay, I just got you on my earpiece there. In the auditorium of the provincial capital's North Plaza Hotel, dancers from the Heilongjiang Song and Dance Company perform Militia Women, a piece about women training to fight against reactionaries and imperialists. So it was everything. You like to dance? A lot of young girls like to dance, ballet, tap, whatever. Sure, you can dance. But you got to learn, you're denouncing your enemies. Who are your enemies? What, is it the Soviet Union? Is it India? Is it America? No. Your enemy is your neighbor. Why is he an enemy? Well, because he's richer than you. He's richer than you. Illegal commerce, don't you know? And he's a counter-revolutionary, and he doesn't love Mao as much as you. And he's a bad character. Okay, we're going to read some super chats just quickly here. Did you send them to me on WhatsApp? Yep. Okay. Pink Phoenix Nails, $1.49. Thank you very much. Unjust Untrudeau, $5. Got your new book yesterday. Read 2 chapters to my family at supper time. Well, there you go. My kids stayed tuned, so that means it's good. Great job, Ezra. Well, that's nice of you to say. Proud Boys Calgary, $7. Nenshi mandating masks in Calgary. Looks like I might have to get some rebel fines help. Communist Party of China should be destroyed. Join Proud Boys or I'll trespass you. You know, I will have some news on the mask front next week. Saskatchewan 20, $2.79. Thank you. Krista Beck, $140. That's just amazing, Krista. Thank you. Short and revealing. That makes 2 of us. Ezra, I will be able to get my China virus book signed at some point. Thanks for all you do. Yes, we're having a book tour. In fact, I hope to announce the first event tomorrow. What's ready? Oh, yeah. Okay, it is ready. Yeah, why don't we put that up? Justin tells me that, in fact, the book tour has the first places. And where is that? Is that just on ChinaVirusBook.com? Okay, so yeah, our first event is coming up on July 21st in Sherwood Park, Alberta, and we'll be doing it around the country where rules allow us to congregate in some number. So, Krista, I don't know where you're based, but we hope to have book tour events. You know, where are our biggest cities? Ontario, Alberta, BC. I hope to get to Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Love to do something in Halifax again. Love to do something in Montreal again. Who knows? We might even do something in America. Okay, let me get back to this. Tom Young John, $2. Ezra Levant, the opposite of a bad character. Says you. Jose Sanzana, $35. Hi Ezra, I'm Jose's wife, and I'm Jewish. My grandmother's cousin was Two-Gun Cohen. He was the only white man to serve in the Chinese army. Huh! Two-Gun Cohen. That sounds like a Vegas kind of character. You know, there were some gangsters, some Jewish gangsters in Vegas. Roman Hladik, 50 Czech. I don't know what a Czech is. It krona? What's a Czech currency? I'd like to have this book. Wouldn't you? And I got to tell you, like I say, I bought my first copy of this in Hong Kong a dozen years ago. In all my travels, I misplaced it, so I went online and I found a used version for $55. You go online right now and look for Red Color News Soldier. Get ready to pay $350 for it. That's why I'm sharing it with you. I wish, you know, I almost feel like buying a whole print run, like of 1,000 copies, and selling them at a reasonable price. But I really, my dream would be to have a museum of this. Let's get right back to it, okay? We're going to get right back to it. I've been reading the super chats. Thank you for the super chats. I appreciate that, but we got to get back into it. Okay. I have to be more choosy because if I'm not, we're not going to get through it. And I don't want to just do it in order. So let's talk about the universities. I mean, obviously, most people in China were illiterate back then. You don't know how poor they were. Well, maybe you do. I mean, right now we think of China, we think skyscrapers, high tech, Huawei, TikTok, largest foreign currency reserves, military. That's all in the last 20 odd years. You go back 50 years, there were famines, some of them caused by Mao himself. Illiteracy, there were countless bicycles, we forget. I mean, China 10 years ago exceeded Canada, United States as the #1 auto market in the world. But 50 years ago, just bicycles. No one had a car. So the educated class, the universities were not large, but boy were they important. Let's show some photos. I'll go to camera 3. A joyous crowd takes to the streets at night after an official broadcast publicizes the contents of a big character poster hung on 25th of May at Beijing University denouncing party leaders at the school for failing to carry out the Cultural Revolution. So they're all really excited that their professors, who may have had a drop of liberalism in them, may have had a drop of independent spirit, critical thinking. I mean, remember, although Chinese was a communist totalitarian regime, if you're a professor at Beijing University in 1965-66, you may have been there for 20, 30 years. You may have been someone who actually loved to learn, loved to debate, had some Western ideas, or even, I mean, China has an ancient tradition of scholars. And so maybe you were too independent-minded. So they were thrilled that they were denouncing their professors. Several thousand faculty members and students from Harbin's University of Industry take to the streets to celebrate Mao's first meeting with citizens supporting the Cultural Revolution, holding aloft a panel that reads, "Care about the affairs of state and carry out the great proletarian Cultural Revolution until the end." Okay, we're only on page 85 here, and I think that's important because you want to see things starting to get going. I'm just going to read a couple more, but then I want to take you to the denunciations. I want to take you to the struggle sessions. I want to show you 3 photos that I remember from when I first saw this book in Hong Kong a dozen years ago, and I never forgot them. How in these struggles, and I'll tell you what they are right now, they're disturbing. People who come to these struggle sessions, they have to bow their head in shame for 2 hours while they're denounced. The peer pressure, maybe some even believed it. Maybe some thought, well, I must denounce myself. But there were some men of character and women of character who said no. They had, and wouldn't denounce themselves. They had things stuffed in their mouths so they couldn't speak up. One woman had her jaw dislocated. That's like insane. And I have to tell you, we're only about 5 minutes away from that in today's current madness. I'm going to read a couple of these early ones and I'm going to flip forward. Okay, I'm going to look at camera 3 now. On the night of 13th of August, people take to the streets to celebrate the Central Committee's adoption of the 16 points, a blueprint for the Cultural Revolution. 3 days later, Red Guards rename Harbin's fashionable Madier restaurant with its European-inspired architecture, anti-revisionist restaurant. I mean, I'll talk to camera 2 now. Here's my point. Especially if you're up there in Heilongjiang near Russia. I mean, Shanghai, if you've ever been there, it's a wonderful city that had a real Western influence. Shanghai was always different from the rest of China. They call it the Bund. I mean, there's so much European influence and Western influence. And so, of course, you had fancy restaurants in the Western style, especially in a border province like Heilongjiang. No. So they would take a restaurant that smacks of anything un-Marxist. I have no idea what Madier was like. I assume it was French cuisine. No, now it's called anti-revisionist restaurant. I swear to God. All right, I'm going to be selective now because it's already 12:37 and we're only in the meat of it now. All right, camera 3. Provincial Party Secretary Wang Yilun, one of Heilongjiang's most powerful leaders, is criticized by Red Guards from the University of Industry and forced to bear a placard around his neck with the accusation, counter-revolutionary revisionist element. And look at the shouting and the denunciation, the self-denunciation. They would purge anyone who wasn't hardcore enough. Oh, and of course any other belief system. I mentioned this is near the border of the Soviet Union. Red Guards attack St. Nicholas, the wooden Russian Orthodox church, before tearing it to pieces. The next day they ransack the Buddhist Ji-le temple, burning sculptures and holy scriptures. Any other belief system besides communism. Oh, they were, look at this. Masses gathered in front of the Ji-le temple cheer as Red Guards from the Harbin Military Institute force self-criticism on the monks after vandalizing their sanctuary. So they would just force them to denounce themselves. As part of the monks' self-criticism, they are forced to hold a banner that reads, "To hell with Buddhist scriptures, they are full of dog farts." I'm not making that up. Can you zoom in? I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if you can zoom in. As part of the monks' self-criticism, they are forced to hold a banner that reads, "To hell with the Buddhist scriptures, they are full of dog farts." Let me just hold that up there for those of our viewers who speak Chinese. Now, obviously, these are people who have given their lives believing in a belief system, Buddhism. And this is reminiscent of how the Nazis torched the Jewish Torahs. You can't believe anything other than Mao is your God. But this self-denunciation, I was wrong, I'm terrible. I got to say, I look around, I mean, a sports personality says something that's not quite pro-Black Lives Matter enough, he has to denounce himself and humiliate himself. You know, Jessica Mulrooney, niece of Brian Mulrooney, you know, just gets into some weird quarrel, has to denounce herself. Like, it's the self-denunciation, the self-abnegation, the total destruction of the, I have to denounce myself more vigorously than you. Maybe you'll hold off on it. In the aftermath of the destruction of the Gila Temple, a sign posted on the wall reads, "Smash the old world." And damaged statues are desecrated with paper dunce caps. They're actually putting dunce caps on the statue. Smash the old world. That was Mao. He wanted to raise everything old. Anything from the past was wrong. Well, hang on. Smashing statues, we do that, don't we? We're tearing down anything from John A. Macdonald. God forbid you even mention a Confederate statue. They're tearing down Abraham Lincoln. Look at this. This is a classic photo. The staff of the Heilongjiang Daily, that's a newspaper obviously, accuses Luo Zicheng, head of the work group designated by the Provincial Party Committee, of following the capitalist line and opposing the mass movement. God forbid a journalist has an opinion. His dunce cap announces his crimes, and on the wall behind him are portraits of Mao, Liu Shaoqi, Zhou Enlai, Zhu Du, Chen Yun, Lin Biao, and Deng Xiaoping. So that's Rex Murphy right there, being denounced in his newspaper, wearing a dunce cap for the crime of, what did they say again? Following the capitalist line and opposing the mass movement. You fool, how dare you oppose the mass movement? Oh my God, look at this. Look at this, look at the blood there. I assume that's blood. At a rally in Red Guard Square, so they renamed the square as Red Guard Square. It's like painting on the street, Black Lives Matter. Why not Red Guard Square? You think they came up with that paint the street thing themselves? No, it's from the Cultural Revolution. At a rally in Red Guard Square, Provincial Party Secretary and First Party Secretary of Harbin, Run Zhongyi, after having his face smeared with black ink, okay, so that's ink, not blood, is forced to wear a dunce cap and a placard around his neck with the accusatory label, Black Gang Member, while standing on an unstable chair with his hands behind his back, holding a string attached to the ill-fitting hat. That's quite a posture. That is a wobbly chair. I can't imagine doing that that's torture, obviously. Yeah, oh yeah. I'll just read a little bit more from that same scene, I think. At a mass rally organized by rebels in Provincial People's Stadium, Party Secretary Wang Yilun and Li Xia, the wife of governing Li Fanwu, are denounced, their faces and clothes splattered with ink, and their crimes spelled out on placards around their necks. Denounced Vice Governor Chun De-jing is paraded through the crowd. You know, that reminds me, I would have said until this year, I would have said it reminds me of that scene from the Game of Thrones where the evil queen Cersei is stripped naked and walked through the Capitol while people shout shame and spit at her. But now I would say it reminds me of the group denunciations, reminds me of Twitter. But of course, Twitter is becoming real life. Look at how deep they bow. Top party officials are denounced during an afternoon-long rally in Red Guard Square. Li Fanwu, top right, provincial party secretary, blah, blah, blah. He's criticized as a careerist. Oh, well then. He's part of a black gang element. Who knows what that means? Chun Lei is denounced. Like the shaming, the denunciations, the group think, the peer pressure, the mob. Now there's just so many pictures, and remember, this is just one guy. This is just one red collar news soldier in Heilongjiang province, which is a very far away province. Like you're at the Soviet border. Oh my God, this is a terrible picture. I'm going to show you a terrible picture. If you don't like terrible pictures, don't look at this one, okay? After having his hair torn out, Li Fanwu is made to bow for hours. Clippings of his hair stuffed down his neck and shirt by an infuriated Red Guard. The banner behind him reads, "Bombard the headquarters, expose and denounce the provincial party committee." What does this mean? Well, because they're not hardcore enough. This is like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying Nancy Pelosi's not tough enough. Oh yeah, look, tough enough in what? Well, evidence of Li Fanwu's crime of the hoarding riches. The guy had a couple of watches. 3 watches, 2 brooches, and 3 artificial leather handbags. Li Fanwu's niece, who had promised to hold on to the belongings, turned them over to the Red Guards. Yeah, I mean, my God, the guy had 3 watches. Better maybe send him to the gulag. After a month of criticism sessions, imagine that. A month of this, Liu Qi-en, the mayor of Harbin, opposite, far left, Chun Lei, Li Fanwu, and Wang Yilun are paraded through the streets of Harbin in trucks. Their names and accusations, counter-revolutionary, local despot, black game element, prominently displayed on placards around their necks. Imagine months of this. Months and months and months. Oh, so hate and euphoric love. Hate and denunciation and euphoric love. During a propaganda movie screening in a Harbin cinema, the audience of students applauds, shouting, "Long live Chairman Mao," each time the image appears on screen. Here followed by Defense Minister Lin Biao. So they're just, yes, I love you. They whip themselves into a frenzy. You know, I just want to show you the scale of this. These are small photos, but thousands. They say several 100,000 people attend a learning and applying Mao Zedong thought rally in Red Guard Square. Hundreds of thousands. The mania. Try being an individual. Try thinking, you can't. You can't. Yu Zi-wen, accused of being a big property owner, is forced to carry a chair onto the stage at Red Guard Square and to stand on it for public criticism. The placard around her neck bears her name and her crime. Okay. I'm going to have to hurry if we're going to make it in time. I mentioned that Heilongjiang province is on the Soviet border, so there's some Soviet style. Right? I mean, just because there's a border doesn't mean people don't exchange. Look at this picture here. Stocks, securities, certificates, and savings deposit books confiscated in home searches are burned at a rally. So they burn any property deeds, any stocks, because that's capitalist. On National Day, school children carrying red tasseled spears and wearing Red Guard armbands parade through the streets past a Russian-style department store. So yeah, the little Gretas of their day. Ha! Amid a crowd of over 1 million Red Guards assembled in Tiananmen Square, awaiting Mao's appearance, one group dances the loyalty dance. Hey, dance the loyalty dance. Where's your loyalty dance? Hey, now that you guys are dancing the loyalty dance, I got some news for you. First one to stop dancing goes to the gulag. Yeah. You better keep dancing. First one to stop dancing. And, oh, first one to stop applauding. I'm making notes of you. Oh, here's Greta. A young Red Guard performs the loyalty dance while awaiting Mao's appearance in Tiananmen Square. How dare you? So that's, here we are. Here we are. Now I'm in a new chapter here. More interesting things about the photographer. Very interesting guy. They talk about Mao himself. The madness of crowds. It's like Jim Jones. It's like a cult. Shi Shouyun, an elated teenage Red Guard, look at her face, the pure joy, records in her little red book the exact time she met with Chairman Mao as he rode by in his motorcade near Tiananmen Square. So met with his, I saw him, I mean, you think Bieber mania is something. You know, there's just so much here. I'll show this one here. A newlywed couple decorate their bedroom with pictures and quotations of Mao. Later criticized for making love under the eyes of their leader, they asserted that they always first turned out the lights. Now there were factions. Look at this. On the steps of Harbin's North Plaza Hotel, which served as a public space for criticism sessions and Red Guard rallies, one rebel group forces leaders from a rival group to kneel and be criticized. It's like the Chaz, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. You have warlords, rival gangs. I think I recognize this face. It's been 10 years since I've seen this photo, but I think I recognize him. Two leaders of rebel faction are escorted out to the front of the North Plaza Hotel, where they were forced to kneel on the ground during a public denunciation. The following day, Hao Durun, accused of forming an armed group to establish a so-called Red Flag Army of China, is taken to be denounced at the same location. Now let me see if I'm right, if I recognize this guy. I was wrong. I thought it was a different face. I'll show you the face later. I'm going to whip forward because I'm on page 157. I'm not even halfway through the book, and it's 12:51. The kids. I hate how they go after the kids, but don't they do that in our country too? A group of little Red Guards admire the new 4-volume edition of the selected works of Mao Zedong and the reprinted quotations from Mao Zedong. The boys had walked from Baoqing County over 400 kilometers away and waited overnight in front of a bookstore to buy the new editions. A large crowd gathers to cheer as rebel factions and PLA soldiers smash and burn the placard of the Harbin municipal government in Red Guard Square. So there was a war of all against all. The struggle sessions, the denunciations. Look at this. Look at that. A huge crowd gathers in front of the North Plaza Hotel to attend the criticism of the former secretaries of the Heilongjiang Party Committee. Wearing placards around their necks, Li Fanwu, Wang Yilun, and Ren Zhongyi are escorted to the stage. Yeah, I wonder if they'll be convicted. Forced to stand on chairs in front of the North Plaza Hotel, the 7 secretaries of the Heilongjiang Party Committee are denounced for carrying out Liu Shaoqi's revisionist line. It doesn't even matter. The black elements, the 4 this, the 5 that, the 12 that, you know, it doesn't even matter. This is a, you know, it doesn't even matter. They're just all guilty of wrongthink. This was a war of Mao against his own people. 2 rebel factions fight for control of a broadcasting bus in front of the Heilongjiang Revolutionary Committee headquarters. I mean, that's their version of who controls the internet, I guess, right? People in Songhua River commemorate the 1-year anniversary of Mao's swim in the Yangtze, which marked his return to power at the outbreak of the Cultural Revolution. So they're having a little swim with the Mao photos there too. So those are their sports heroes or something, I don't know. I'm going to be more selective. You know what, I mentioned that they just destroy everything. Smash the old. That sounds like tear down old statues, tear down John A. Macdonald, tear down anything named before we were so woke. Rename things. Look at this. Poor and lower middle peasants hold a meeting at North Plaza Hotel. The banner above the speaker reads, "Criticize the old times and cherish the new society." Anything old must be evil because it's not us. And we are wiser and more enlightened than anyone else. Destroy anything else. Don't ask questions. Yeah, okay, I got some bad photos here. Viewer discretion advised. It wasn't just hang your head and be denounced. Obviously it was worse. You're in a field like this, hey, pro tip, you're having a trial of people in the field, you're in the field for a reason. The accused Li Wenye, Zhang Liangfu, Kui Feng Yun, Guan, I'm not going to read the names, are made to stand in line with their backs to the crowd that has gathered to watch the sentence being carried out. So I showed you those individuals, right? I guess that's why they were in that centerfold there. They were important for some reason. The 8 criminals, and by criminals, these aren't murderers or bank robbers. These are thought criminals. Sorry, you thought these are not criminals. They're thought criminals. The 8 criminals and counter-revolutionaries are forced to kneel on the ground. In the moment before their execution, a guard attempts to separate the 2 condemned lovers. And then shot in a field. Did you think it would end a different way? You know, can you tell me the difference between this and how the Nazis operated? I can tell you one difference. Mao's death toll was larger. And he killed his own people. All right, so we're going chronologically, right? Now we're this is the chapter in the book called 1968 to 1972. So this thing's been going for 3-4 years by now. Look at this idiot. You know those cars that have bumper stickers for Bernie and bumper stickers for AOC and da-da-da? Well, they didn't have cars back there, but here's the version of that. During a 3-week-long conference of learning and applying Mao Zedong thought, Wang Guoxiang, a model PLA soldier, shares his experiences from a meeting in Xinfa Commune, just outside Harbin, where the audience pinned some 170 Mao badges on his cap and uniform to express their admiration. You know, you go to college, you're going to find people like this with just every little pin from, you know, Black Lives Matter to Idle No More to Occupy Wall Street to, well, oh, this photo, look at this. Kang Wen-jie, a 5-year-old prodigy, performs the loyalty dance at Harbin's Red Guard Stadium for representatives of the conference on learning and applying Mao Zedong thought. Do the loyalty dance. Faster, faster, faster loyalty dance. Do the loyalty. Don't stop the loyalty dance. You stop that loyalty dance, that shows you're disloyal, 5-year-old Kang Wen-jie. Where's your portrait? Okay, you did the loyalty dance. Where's your loyalty painting? You didn't paint Mao Zedong? Put a BLM avatar on your Twitter account. No, you're not going to do that, so you're not loyal. Hundreds of thousands gather in front of the North Plaza Hotel. That seems to be the hotspot. Carrying homemade portraits of Mao in a show of loyalty support. If you don't make a homemade portrait of Mao, you're obviously not loyal. I'm going to skip over the sporting, lots of sports and festivals. I'm just going to skip it because we don't have time. Oh, yeah. I mean, Heilongjiang is not, I mean, it's an important province. I suppose they all are. But it's not in the center. It's far flung. We're just lucky to have had this red color news soldiers photo reel. This was happening everywhere. In fact, Heilongjiang sort of in the middle of nowhere. Uang, I don't know how to say that, Sheng, son of the former First Secretary of Heilongjiang's provincial committee, is dragged outside the North Plaza Hotel and persecuted for sending an unsigned letter to the Provincial Revolutionary Committee defending his denounced father. Oh my God, he defended his father. Well, I denounce you. You can see the date there, 1968. Oh yes. Oh, I hate these photos. There's 3 of them in this book. But they are perfectly symbolic, a perfect capture of what's going on here. So this is the kid who wants to defend his dad. As he tries to shout in his defense, Ouyang Sheng's mouth is stuffed with a glove. The sign around his neck bears his name and date of his offending letter. So because he wouldn't self-denounce, because he said, my dad's not guilty, they stuff a glove in his mouth to shut him up. The others would shut up on their own. They would denounce themselves. This guy, Ouyang Sheng, he wouldn't shut up. So they just stuffed a glove in his mouth. They stuffed a glove in his mouth. He wouldn't shut up, this guy. Several days after this criticism session in front of the North Plaza Hotel, Ouyang Sheng would be pushed out of a window on the 3rd floor of an office building by a member of a rebel faction. The official report would call his death a suicide. There's that glove in the mouth. Yeah, he just wouldn't shut up, would he? So he... Unbelievable. Oh, manual labor, of course, right? A central tenet of the May 7th cadre school program was that manual labor could be an effective means of erasing elitism and reinstalling socialist values. Here, May 7th soldiers thresh grain in the northern part of Heilongjiang. So they would take anyone who's a thinker and just say, you're going to go and smash rocks for a few years. All right, I'm skipping ahead. There's so, because I know it's 1:02. I'm not done. You're okay to go for a bit longer? All right. So now we're in the final phase, the worst of it. I think it's the worst of it. What a terrible, terrible time and place. So this is the last part, 1972 to 1976. You know, Pierre Trudeau went to China as an admirer of this. I want to let you know that. Pierre Trudeau didn't just go to China when he was Prime Minister. He went there before on a personal mission, just like he went to the Soviet Union. Who does that? He went there. You know, centrally planned economies, Mao killed 20 million plus of his own people because he thought he would just turn every house into a steel smelter. Educated youth and local peasants collaborate to till and irrigate the frozen land in preparation of the season's planting. So it's frozen. They're chipping into permafrost. Or maybe it's not permafrost, but as far as I showed you the map where Heilongjiang is. And when they say educated youth, this is their punishment. Oh, you thought for yourself? Let's do some farming in the dead of winter when the land is frozen ice. That's not about farming, is it? Peasants break up the frozen fields of northern Heilongjiang, while teams of female workers are sent to retrieve cartloads of mud to enrich the heavily salinated soil. That's madness. Like I said, he treated people like ants. Oh my God. Farming in the ice. Hey, do you think that's going to work? Do you think you're going to feed people? Or maybe they're all going to starve. After a decade of turmoil, the hardship of life in China's rural areas remained largely unchanged. You don't say. Here, a pregnant woman carries frozen clod in the annual mass effort to revitalize the arid land. So it looks like you got a couple thousand people digging chunks of frozen, icy soil and planting in the frozen. I wonder if that's going to work. Peasants and predominantly female educated youth from the cities use sandy soil from muddy fields to reduce the saline level of the land and prepare. So it's so salty, it's frozen, but it's so salty. I wonder if things are going to grow. But you know what? Just keep following that mass culture. When you're done a day chopping ice and salty mud, ballet version of the Red Women Troupe, one of Jiang Qing's 8 model operas performed by the National Ballet Company of Beijing. I wouldn't be surprised if every female dancer in that troupe was a rape slave for Mao Zedong. Don't do yourself a favor and don't Google how Mao Zedong raped thousands of women. It'll stain your mind forever. I'm going to flip ahead. Look at this. This I think is in Beijing. Let's see. No, this is in Harbin. Following Mao's decision to remove Deng Xiaoping from all public positions, holding him accountable for the spontaneous and unsanctioned memorials after Zhou Enlai's death, PLA soldiers assembled in Harbin's People's Stadium, formerly Red Guard Square, with banners that indignantly denounced the crimes of Deng Xiaoping. That's such a big crowd. I thought that was in Beijing. No, that's in Harbin. It's hard to keep up all the internal quarrels and who did what. I don't know. A studio photographer from the county capital uses an 8x10 bellows camera to make the official group picture of educated youth at Yinlonghe Farm, where the Youth Shock Brigade, as indicated on the flag, participated in building a small dam to regulate irrigation. So if you engaged in wrongthink, they'd send you out there. Now, I don't understand all of it, but Mao died, obviously. You can imagine what happened in the country that treated him as such a cult figure. It's like when eternal leader, dear leader, Kim died in North Korea. The tears were real, believe it or not. As I mentioned to you before, when I visited Tommy in prison, you're in solitary confinement for a while, he told me. He would start to fear meeting guests. He started to love his cell. It's a psychological coping mechanism. You're in this cult, this authoritarian, totalitarian regime. You start to love it for a form of protection, psychological protection. So when Mao died, they cried tears, real tears. A woman sheds a tear in People's Stadium during the official memorial. She wasn't faking it, because everything she knew about the world was changed. What would the world be like? Crowds enter Harbin's People's Stadium, it used to be called Red Guard Stadium, to attend the city's memorial for Mao. The billboards read, "Pursue Mao's last will, carry on the work of the proletarian revolution to the end, and great leader and teacher, Chairman Mao Zedong, will live in our hearts forever." Oh my God, look at that. And this is in Harbin, this isn't even Beijing, look at these. Hundreds of thousands gather in Harbin's People's Stadium to mourn Chairman Mao. Hundreds of thousands. Hundreds of thousands of prisoners mourn the death of their jailer. During Mao's memorial, provincial party leaders, some of whom had been denounced at the height of the Cultural Revolution, pay their respects to the deceased leader. So I suppose, in some ways, the reign of terror had eased. Epilogue. This is terrifying. Now, I don't quite understand Chinese internal politics. I haven't studied it enough. But this is the woman who had her jaw dislocated, so don't be grossed out. I'm going to read a paragraph, then I'll show you the photos. Following the death of Mao and the arrest of the Gang of Four in the fall of 1976, the Cultural Revolution, which had implicated millions of people at every level of society, many of whom remained in power, was encased in an icy silence. One notable exception was the 1979 publication of People or Monsters, an expose on a 52-year-old woman named Wang Shouxin, party branch secretary and manager of the Bin County Coal Company in Heilongjiang Province, accused of embezzling an estimated $100,000. A lowly cashier before the revolution, Wang formed a rebel group and rode the revolutionary tide to power, later consolidating her control over the entire county through an elaborate network of personal alliances created by the smokescreen of radical politics. You don't say that some of these red guards were actually more capitalist than those they were denouncing. You don't say some of it was for personal power. I'm shocked. Written by a formerly denounced journalist, Liu Binyan, People or Monsters brought the coal queen of Bin County to national attention. Viewed by some as symptomatic of the influence peddling and graft that permeated the entire country, the case revealed how, long after the slogan shouting of the Cultural Revolution had died away, the conduits of power created often remained in place, resulting in an entirely new level of authority. Those who received power through revolution then exploited it through personal connections. The famous trial of the greatest embezzler since the founding of New China thrust Heilongjiang Province once more into the public spotlight. Following a 3-day open trial in Harbin, Wang was found guilty. Her death sentence, seen by many as excessive in light of the violence systematically perpetrated by others during the same period, was pronounced and carried out in February 1980. So she was a Red Guard revolutionary who obviously was corrupt. And then in sort of a re-revolution, she was charged. I'm sure she was guilty. What would I know? Wang Shouxin, a former rebel in... Oh, my phone's speaking up. My watch is speaking up. Who knows why it does that? Wang Shouxin, a former rebel and party branch secretary during the Cultural Revolution, is hauled before a crowd of 5,000 guests at Harbin Workers' Arena to hear her sentence on charges of embezzlement. I'm not a sympathizer to her. There we go. To stop, I'm sorry, this is gross and shocking. To stop Wang from proclaiming her innocence, the bailiffs dislocate her jaw before transporting her by truck to a snowy field on the rural outskirts of Harbin. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Wang Shouxin is unloaded onto a snowy field 30 kilometers southeast of Harbin and waits for her sentence to be carried out. People are monsters. A guard hands a single bullet to Wang Shouxin's executioner. And that's the last photo in the book. Am I sympathetic to Wang? I don't know. I don't know. How would I know? She wasn't allowed to dispute her conviction. She wasn't allowed to say, I didn't do it. Sort of like all the show trials she fomented. She had her jaw dislocated, sort of like all those people who had cloths and gloves stuffed in their mouth. She didn't have a real trial. There are no real trials in China. The judiciary is not independent. It's a sham trial, show trial. She was shot with a single bullet in the countryside. Like, so how many people did she order murdered? Is it in the thousands or tens of thousands? I have no idea if she stole money, the coal queen of Heilongjiang. I'm sure she did. You know, if you're not shy about murdering people, you're probably not shy about stealing from them. Thanks, Efren. So it's 1:13. That's the book. Everyone, appreciate you manning camera 3. The book we've been going through is called, I took off the jacket because it was a little bit floppy. It's Red Color News Soldier. It's photograph, and I didn't show you all of them. I skipped ahead. It's just too much. It's a very thick book. It's an outstanding book. I first found it. Oh, can you that tweet I sent you, Justin? I found this in Hong Kong, a dozen years ago, whatever, 10 years ago. And I was fascinated by it. And I took it into China. Well, look at this. Look at this tweet. It's just, It's just yesterday, New York Post. Hong Kong libraries are removing pro-democracy books due to China's new law. That is from yesterday's New York Post. Actually, probably click on the link, would you? Hong Kong libraries. Let's just read a little bit by Julie Coleman. Public libraries in Hong Kong have removed several books by pro-democracy authors from the shelves less than a week after China passed a controversial national security law, raising concerns that the new law will dampen political dissent and dialogue in the city. The new law criminalizes acts of secession, undermining the authority of the central government, terrorism, or collusion with foreign forces, all of which could be punishable with life in prison. The books removed from the libraries were listed as under review on the library catalog and include 2 works by activist Joshua Wong. 2013's I Am Not a Hero and 2015's I Am Not a Child before and after turning 18 years old, according to the Wall Street Journal. The 2012 book My Journeys for Food and Justice by legislator Tanya Chan, who is a founding member of the pro-democracy Civic Party, was also removed. Wong, who is currently awaiting trial after charges from 2019's protests, said on Twitter that the national security law, quote, imposes a mainland-style censorship regime on Hong Kong and is one step away from actual book banning. Thanks. So those charges there, causing a problem, being in league with foreign elements, did we just not go through 316 pages of that? You have bad character, you're with a gang, you're with the black gang. So it's back, Now I'm gonna switch sides of my microphone here. Forgive me, I'm just gonna switch this around. Hopefully that's not making too much noise. Because I'm gonna put this on my other side. Obviously having some problems here. I'm just switching sides because I'm now going to face my computer, and we're going to get through a lot of those super chats. Would you forgive me the fact that I clearly don't know what I'm doing here? Thank you. I'm just putting it there because I'm going to be facing the other side. Thank you for your patience, everybody. All right, I showed you the book. What do you think? What do you think of that book? Is that book not only a shocking history of great moral crimes, but also a roadmap for what's been going on here? Would you agree with me that we're just moments away from that? The group denunciations, the self-denunciations, the mass accusations, the naming and shaming. What did you say? Okay, good. Justin was just saying my mic's good. Okay, I'm going to do the super chats. Let's go through the super chats. There's a lot here. Dragon Joe, $5. I thought your book would be good. I didn't know how terrifying it was, though, and how true to now. This is something I have to share with my friends. Thank you. Now, you're talking about my little book called China Virus. Thank you. Obviously, it's not as shocking as these photos, but I appreciate you buying it. Dragon Joe, $5. I thought your book would be good. Oh, you wrote that twice. Thank you. Robin McAdam, $2. God bless you all. Thank you. Travis Colson, $7. Do you follow Anomaly? He is a news critic and brings a lot of truth and positive vibes, and he's against the mob, the lies, and fear-mongering. No, I don't follow Anomaly, but thanks for the tip. Tom Youngjohn, $2. A brilliant message. I'm not sure what message you're referring to, but thank you. Unjust on Trudeau, $2. Reprint that book, Ezra. I'm in for a copy. Well, obviously, I don't have the rights to it, but I think it's quite timely, and maybe even an email to. I might even write to the publisher and see if I could buy. If they would do a print run. I don't think companies like to do print runs for less than 1,000 books, but I think I paid $55 for this. But when I last looked online this morning, it was $350. Chris S., £10. Hi, Ezra, just sent you an email with a link to Tips at Rebel News. Looks like there's a plague back from the dead. Guess where it comes from? I think you're talking about that bubonic plague outbreak in Mongolia, right? Dragon Joe, $2. Thanks for this look into your book. God bless you. Okay, the book I was looking through, Red Color News Soldier, it's just a book I own. I bought it. I didn't write it. This is the book I wrote, China Virus. This is a quick read. This is the book I found in a store in Hong Kong, and then I misplaced it over the years, and then I bought a used version online. So that's just clarification. Big Box Wrench, $5. Wanda Granada, $10. Thank you. Jack Krauser, $14. #1 fan. Jim Clayton, songwriter, $5. Stop buying made in communist China stuff, folks. It's harder than it sounds, but if you take an incremental approach, that makes it doable. I mean, just slowly do one less thing by one less thing from China. You can't go cold turkey, you can't. But slowly you can. Proud Boys Calgary, $2. Look how strong Mao is. He floated in the Yangtze. Yeah. Dan F, $20. Thank you for being you. Well, you're welcome. Jack Krauser, $40. Let's set up an autonomous zone at the CBC headquarters called Fake News Autonomous Zone, or FNAZ. I think that's really funny. John Tory has no self-respect. He allows that autonomous zone at his office. I wonder how long the CBC would put up with it. It'd be a real test of if they mean anything. Then again, we saw that CNN, which is against walls and against borders, they put up a big fence around their headquarters in Atlanta, didn't they? Crazy Skitsy, $5. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Tom Young. John, $2. Laughter at torture. I think it wasn't a laughter of amusement. It was laughter at shock and like a ha, like ha. It wasn't a ha ha ha. It was a ha. So yeah, it was an exclamation. It's shocking. Those photos of people having their jaws unhooked, of having things stuffed in their mouth. Like imagine your father is denounced. You are denounced for saying he didn't do it. You say you didn't do it, and they're stuffing your mouth with a glove to shut you up. Can you call up Van Mala's attack on Rex Murphy? Do you know how to do that? Because I want to show to you that that is being done today. Young Bear, $5. Jihadi Jack, ever hear of that garbage? If not, please check it out and make your blood boil. Yeah, you're talking about the Brit who went over to the ISIS, Islamic State, and did a bunch of terrorism. Damon the Tamits, $5. Don't be so short and revealing in history. Short and revealing. That's what people say about my China virus book. Look, I just wanted to get it, and you could see, I skipped half the photos in there, but I just wanted to show it. Maybe we'll do a bunch of short clips. Justin, we'll just chop this up into like 5 little parts. It always does better that way anyways. John C, $10. Keep fighting the cancel culture. Ezra Rebel media team. Never be afraid to speak the truth. God bless. Yeah, well, can you imagine? How are we doing with that Van Mala business? Okay, let's put it up. Go to the part, let's just read it. Start from the top. So just, people are saying, what are you talking about? When Rex Murphy was denounced, Rex Murphy said Canada is not a racist country. And some newcomer to Canada named Van Mala Subramaniam, so new here, she still speaks with an accent. She says, no, Canada is racist. Then why did you come here, sister? You just got here. You don't even know us. But you obviously think it's fine for you to come here. But let me read these, let me read a little bit. So this is the denunciation, the struggle session against Rex Murphy by his co-worker, Van Mala Subramaniam. It's a laugh to call her a co-worker. Rex Murphy is the top of his craft. Van Mala Subramaniam is some, absolutely fungible, millennial, know-nothing, dime a dozen writer, could really work for anywhere. No one, it's just, to call them colleagues is a laugh, but it's like when I show you the Heilong Jiang Daily, they took out their editor. So let me read a bit. Rex Murphy, the conservative commentator, former CBC radio host, and here's the worst part, a 73-year-old white man, gag me with a spoon, is convinced that racism does not exist in this country and that the vast majority of Canadians would never participate in it. And Van Mala is here to lecture us about that because she just arrived here and she knows the country better than Rex. Earlier this week, in a column published in the newspaper I work for, Murphy explicitly wrote, he couldn't even be implicit, he explicitly wrote that Canada is not a racist country, acknowledging that the statement might shock some. His arguments to support this sweeping declaration, one that effectively erases centuries of history that pertain to the founding of this nation, were made in 250 odd words. All right, I don't know what the point there is. He's a concise writer. They ranged, okay, scroll down. This is boring, scroll down. Okay, look at this. This is incredible. This is pure struggle session. This is pure struggle session, criticism session, Maoist Red Guard bullshit. It is perhaps too obvious to state that someone who has absolutely no lived experience of racism, discrimination, bigotry, because Newfoundlanders, they've always been a privileged class in Canada. They've always been the richest of the provinces. They've always been treated the best by Ottawa and Toronto. Van Melle knows that because she just arrived here. So Rex Murphy doesn't know anything about poverty or want or isolation or alienation. What does he know? Someone who has never been anything other than accepted, because the Newfoundlanders, they run the joint, who has clearly no interest in really understanding race issues in this country, because Rex is not curious about the world. Beyond performative platitudes and slogans. Yeah, Rex and his slogans, pushed forward by corporate institutions and political class. Look at this. Should not be weighing in on the subject of racism. Rex Murphy, you 73-year-old white man, you should not be talking about this. You work for a newspaper for a living. Your job is to talk about it. But I am here to say, and I just arrived in Canada, that you should not be talking about this. Scroll down. And they, I think Rex's pronouns are singular. They're not plural. They most certainly should not be allowed to declare that racism is over, nor be given a national platform to do so. Can someone please find me a cloth or a glove to stuff in Rex Murphy's mouth so he won't shut up, but we must shut him up like the son of the party official. He just won't shut up. They most certainly should not be allowed to declare that racism is over. And the worst part is they should not be given a national platform to do so. Get me a glove to stuff in his mouth. Do you see my point about things? How we are 5 minutes away from the Red Guards' struggle sessions, self-denunciations. He should not be allowed to talk about this. Why is he allowed to talk? We denounced you. Give me a glove. Someone give me a glove. Just unhinge his jaw. Would someone please dislocate his jaw? Can someone please I'm waiting. Van Melle Subramanian is a Red Guard of 2020, and she is a disgrace to the National Post that should have fired her, not for disagreeing with Rex, but for saying that anyone does not have the right to speak by virtue of race. Van Melle Subramanian is a goddamn racist. And worse, because I think racists, I don't think racists should be denied their free speech. Van Melle Subramanian is a racist, and ageist too. But I'm not saying she should be banned or anything. I think she should be fired. Why would the National Post want a racist like that on staff? But telling a national newspaper, as a journalist who works there, to censor someone and that they should not be allowed to publish him, he should not be allowed to write in a national newspaper, that's not racist anymore, which Van Melle Subramanian is. She's a goddamn racist. That's just Maoist. That's just illiberal. That's a bully. That's a censor. That's a mouth stuffer who would stuff a cloth in someone's mouth. That's a bigot, by the definition of bigot, meaning uninformed, poor opinions uninformed. I think it's okay that the National Post has an internal debate about a controversial column in their pages. In fact, that's sort of their job. That's sort of fun when they are the conversation, they host the conversation, and you want to talk about Rex Murphy, we do too, come back and forth, and Rex is up for it. That's fine. The fact that they publish a racist making racist arguments is sort of gross. I mean, would you ever publish someone saying Van Melle Subramanian is a young brown woman, she should shut up because she's brown? If you publish that, you'd be a racist. Why would you publish the mirror image of that? Like, it's gross that the Post published a racist and that they abide a racist. But to write in a newspaper, you shouldn't be allowed to publish him. He shouldn't be allowed to write for you. why is that person working in a newspaper at all? Why is that person telling the National Post if she had her way, she would stop this? How can you let someone like that continue in your newspaper? Out of self-respect, out of respect for the fundamental freedoms of free speech, freedom of the press, out of just corporate integrity, how can you have a would-be Red Guard thug like the racist Van Melle Subramanian write that and still work for you? I think the answer is that Matt Gurney, the editorial page editor there, is a self-loathing self-denouncer in the mode of a struggle session. Can you call up the Vice News piece on that? I first heard about this struggle session shortly after it happened, and Vice News, where Van Melle used to work, gee, how did they get that? Published some excerpts from it. Journalists at Canada's biggest conservative newspaper revolt. The Red Guards are revolting over a column denying racism. And scroll down a bit to what Matt Gurney says. If you can find, so here's Matt Gurney. So he was the official, the party official who was being denounced by the Red Guards. And he said, Rob Roberts, the editor, thought it was being edited in the comment section, and I thought it was being edited in the news section. By the time either of us realized neither he nor I had actually taken ownership of it to give a proper editorial review, it had been copy edited and proofread and put online, Gurney said during the town hall. It was an F-up, and I know that's not a satisfying answer to all the people here, and it certainly isn't for me to offer. What? Can you go down a little bit more, scroll a little bit further? A little bit further, a little bit further. Gurney said Murphy's column wasn't at a level that I would have wanted it to be. In particular, he said the statement declaring that Canada isn't racist, which ended up being the headline, was indefensible. So Matt Gurney bent the knee to the Red Guards. He's a coward, obviously. And he said whatever he had to say to survive. He denounced himself. It's an F-up. You guys caught me. I screwed up. I shouldn't have published Rex Murphy. You're right. It's an F-up. And I'm Matt Gurney, and I know you've never heard of me, and I'll never be a great man like Rex Murphy, but I'm willing to denounce him for you if you just spare me, okay? I'm Matt Gurney. And if you guys just lay off in this struggle session, if you guys stop denouncing me, I'll say that Rex Murphy's a big dum-dum. I'll say he was indefensible and it was just stop. I'll do whatever you say. I think that's how most people went when the Red Guards came for them. Because it takes unusual courage to stand up to a mob of dozens or hundreds or thousands, especially in your own community. Could you imagine that these struggle sessions went on for months? Not just one shocking day, but it became the whole culture. Denounce someone, rat them out, rival gangs ratting each other out, people pushed out of windows. And if someone doesn't shut up, you stuff something in their mouth. And you make them bend over and torture them physically and wear a dunce cap for 2 hours. And Matt Gurney, instead of saying, okay guys, it was a controversial column, we ran an opposing point of view, buck up campers, it's an opinion page. He didn't do that because he's a coward. And I know it's easy to be a coward when the mob is coming for you. Just don't call yourself a leader then. Matt Gurney should be like a basic Red Guard in like row 75. He shouldn't be a leader. And he is a disgrace too. Van Melle Subramanian obviously is an illiberal bigot who doesn't understand Canadian culture, is based on Western concepts of freedom. I believe those Western concepts of freedom should be universal. I believe that every country in the world, every human in the world, regardless of nationality, race, gender, whatever, believes in freedom, yearns to be free. I don't think Van Melle Subramanian believes that. She said as much. But listen, she is who she is. She's just some low-level, no one ever heard of him before, millennial, completely fungible writer who, according to her LinkedIn page, she worked here, she worked there. She really, you know, I don't think she's even been in the National Post for more than a year. So who cares what she says, really? But for Matt Gurney to bend the knee to her, he should be fired. What's his excuse? Anyways, I'm mad at the National Post, but I shouldn't pick at them. Who hasn't been defenestrated in the last month? Whether you're a sports commentator, a movie star, a professor, a journalist, a pundit. I mean, the New York Times. I'll stop picking on the National Post. Van Melle Subramaniam is a disgraceful bigot. Matt Gurney's a coward. Okay, I said it, let's move on. The New York Times fired their editorial pages editor for running an opinion column by a sitting U.S. senator saying we should push back on Black Lives Matter through police. Senator Cotton, I think it was. You can absolutely disagree with Cotton, but you're firing the editorial pages editor because he ran an editorial that had, by the way, it's a majority view in America. Majority of blacks, according to polls, support that view too, by the way. So yeah, it's not just the cowards at the Post, it's everywhere. Globe and Mail. When I had an op-ed in their newspaper a year ago, their union, Unifor, wrote to their editors saying, never allow Ezra to write for them again. So it's not just the Post. Maybe I'm criticizing the Post because it claims to be conservative. The Globe and Mail is just as bad. The CBC is insane. It's ironic that they fired Wendy Mesley for dropping the N-word. Apparently she throws that around like confetti, which is insane, by the way. But it's quite something that someone who made a living canceling others herself got canceled. So let me close as I open. I hope you enjoyed the tour through Red Color News Soldier. A fascinating, terrifying, horrifying look at the struggle sessions, the Red Guard, Mao's Cultural Revolution. It's really 10 years of terror. I hope we're not in for 10 years of that in North America and the West. But I don't think we're done the worst of it yet. There's a couple of super chats. I'm going to take care of them now. And then I'm going to sign off. We had a 96-minute live stream. That's longer than we usually do. By the way, we've got a live stream tonight for those in Canada who are interested in the Conservative Party of Canada's leadership contest. Sheila Gunn-Reid and I will be doing a live stream for a debate, because there'll be a debate. I think we're going to start our coverage at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So tune in for that. So today's going to be a big day of live streaming. Crazy Skitsy, $2. We should focus on defunding the media, the CBC. Yeah. Jamie Remus, $21. Ezra for Prime Minister. And no thanks. Well, my friends, when I saw this book, it made such a deep impression on me. In fact, it was a staggering thing. And maybe you can find this book in a library. Maybe you can find it in a library and sign it out. I know you can. It's called Red Color News Soldier. I don't recommend paying $350 for one on Amazon, but that's what they're costing now. There are some of these photos online, some of them officially, some of them people have sort of taken pictures of and put up. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Enjoy is probably the wrong word. I hope you had your eyes opened and learned the template of what's being done to us now. I see one last super chat from Isaiah for $5. Where we go one, we go all. God bless. Thanks for that. Well, that's it for me. Thank you for those who chipped in for the super chats. I'll be back at 8 p.m. tonight with my produced show and 8:30 p.m. for our live stream of the debates. Until then, on behalf of all of us at Rebel World Headquarters, to you at home, goodbye, and keep fighting for freedom.